Okay, welcome everyone to our presentation of our replication study, increasing walking distance through token enforcement systems. We're going to introduce all of our group members, and we're going to start off with myself. My name is Danielle Kraus. I live in Cerritos, California. I've been in the ABA field for about 2 years now. I currently work at a charter school that is specifically designed for special needs from moderate to severe behaviors. So a lot of our students aren't allowed to go to the district because their parents either don't believe in restraint or their behaviors are so severe, our school is more equipped to handle them. I love what I do, and I love to see the progress in the students day by day and benchmark by benchmark. So next we're going to have Claudia introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Claudia Mendez. I live in Salinas, California. Salinas is located in Monterey County, so it's in between Santa Cruz and Monterey, in case you're not too sure where it is. I have worked in ABA for over 3 years now. I recently became certified as a BCABA, and I currently work as both a QAS, providing supervision, and I also provide one-on-one therapy to one of my clients. And now here's Christina.
Hi guys, my name is Christina, and I currently work at an ABA clinic for early intervention. I'm a lead therapist for them, and this is my 3rd semester at Ball State, if I remember correctly. And now, here's Heather.
Hi, my name is Heather Meisner. I am a teacher for a company, an ABA company that has just recently opened up a school. So I do the academic portion, but I'm continuing obviously for my BCBA. I have been working in special ed for over 10 years and autism specific for over a year, though my son, who's 11, has autism. So now on for the presentation.
Okay, so we're going to be evaluating the use of token reinforcement to increase walking in active graduate students. We did our introductions for everyone, and now Claudia is going to talk about some background for token economies.
Okay, token economies have actually been around since the 1960s. They are among the top reinforcement-based systems used in the field of behavior analysis. And this is for various reasons, including convenience and high effectiveness. Now, token economies can be used with a variety of individuals in different settings, and they can be used with just about any behavior, including behaviors associated with exercise and physical activity. Now, there are 3 major components to a token economy. First, it's necessary to choose and define the target behavior that's going to be reinforced. Second, the tokens that are going to be used should be selected, and this can be anything that's convenient, such as a poker chip, a marble, or even just writing down a star next to a child's name on a piece of paper. Third, backup reinforcers that will be purchased with tokens should be selected, and this can be a variety of different things, including tangible items, activities, privileges, or really anything that the individual would be motivated to work for. So one thing to note is that it's important to conduct a preference assessment to determine reinforcers if this is an option. It's also necessary to establish the exchange ratio, and this can be based on the number of times that the behavior has to occur before a token is delivered, or it can be time-based. Okay, now we're going to go on to our next slide and talk about some of the advantages of using a token economy. There's actually a lot of advantages to using a token economy. First, people of various ages can administer tokens, including young children. So children can even deliver tokens to other children. Next, token economies can really be very convenient for the person implementing the token economy. And this is because they don't have to stop what they're doing to deliver a reinforcer that might be inconvenient to deliver. They can just hand out a token or place a star next to a child's name. Token economies also provide the person implementing them lots of flexibility because they get to decide how they want to run the token economy. They can decide what's more convenient for that specific situation, including what backup reinforcers to use, depending on the budget, what tokens to hand out to individuals, and when tokens can be exchanged for backup reinforcers. Now, another advantage is that a token can be given right after the behavior occurs, when it might not be possible to deliver another type of reinforcer. Token economies can also help prevent satiation, and this is because the individual gets to choose a reinforcer from maybe a variety of reinforcers that are available. Token economies also help bridge the gap between the time that the behavior occurs and the time the reinforcer is delivered. Additionally, another advantage is that they are a good option for individuals who lack motivation and struggle to make therapeutic results. Okay, so now we're going to start with some of our literature review, and Heather's going to start.
All right. All right. For the oldest article from 1969, Libin Clements, they started a research study at a hospital for elderly patients. We had there was four males, 60 to 70, who were diagnosed with chronic brain syndrome and a secondary psychiatric condition. These men had health issues that needed some exercise to help remedy, and because of their age and their disabilities, they were not motivated to walk on their own or to exercise on their own, and so they needed some sort of motivation for that. So they had a bike set up, and it was automatically triggered where marbles would drop down from it. There was given, the behavior was 3 revolutions of the wheel. So after 3 revolutions, the marble would drop down, and they could exchange the marbles for cigarettes. It was done in 69, candy, chewing gum, and peanuts at the end of the session. 3 out of the 4 participants did increase their exercise rate. However, researchers did recommend a wider range of reinforcements. So this is where, a reinforcement assessment would be a great idea. Supports of token, and this does support token use for people who lack motivation. Our next study was titled "The Effect of a Token Economy on the Exercise Behavior of Individuals with Down Syndrome." There were 3 female participants with Down syndrome, ages 32 to 56. It was noted in the study that people with Down syndrome struggle with health conditions that make exercise important, yet it is difficult to motivate natural motivation for exercise can be difficult. So here they had a and they were given opportunities to exercise 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week. The pedaling behavior was defined as pedaling it, and it was for how much they got reinforced varied on how much. It just varied automatically. Time on task was recorded in seconds, and that was what was measured. Here it was poker chips that were automatically delivered, and then they could exchange it for combs, makeup, records, tapes. All participants increased dramatically in the intervention, and so this also supports token economy use for people who struggle with motivation. This one is stair utilization, and Claudia will discuss. Oh no, this is mine, sorry. So anyway, boosting workplace stair utilization. This was done, actually, I thought it was very interesting, with adults in a workplace. And there was 216 participants. And it was in combination between a company called Chip Rewards, and I think the health insurance company, and the business. They wanted to encourage their client or their workers or staff to become more healthy. And one way that's easy to do that is just encouraging them to use the stairs. So 216 participants, as I said, signed up. The points were earned through an electronic system called Chip Rewards, and it was measured through there too. And they could exchange after 6 months for money. The max was $86, and it was done if they walked certain amount of days in a row using the stairs. They got a little extra money. If they did 5 days a week, they got a little extra money. So that's how it was determined. It ended up being just cents, like 30 cents every time they went this up or down the stairs, but then it could be multiplied depending on if they walked so many days consecutively and all of that. But it ended up being $86 at the end of 6 months. There was a 600% increase in sterilization per day among participants. So this, again, it supports effects of token economy. And what I like about this is these are typical adults working, and it worked with them as well.
Okay, now, although often token economies are usually implemented by adults, a token economy is simple enough that even children can help delivering tokens. In a study conducted by Alstott in 2012, the research investigated whether a peer-administered token economy could improve elementary school children's successful jump rope practice trials during a general education PE class. So a successful trial included one where the jump rope started behind the children's head, and they swung it over and tried to jump with both of their feet. Now, whether or not they were able to jump over the rope didn't really matter, just that they made an attempt to jump over the jump rope. And the participants in this study were 10 third graders. There were 5 boys and 5 girls of various jump rope skill levels. 7 of them were actually, we would say, new to jumping rope. The other 3 were already good at jumping rope. The design type that they used was an alternating treatment design that alternated between baseline sessions and token economy sessions. And they had either a baseline session or a token economy session that day during a regular scheduled PE class. They just included it in there. Sessions lasted about 10 to 15 minutes with 5 cycles of 30 seconds of jumping, followed by 30 seconds of rest for each child. During the rest, the partner would deliver the tokens to the child. They counted how many times the partner jumped, and they got 1 token for every jump, every 10 jumps. And now the results showed that 9 out of 10 students showed significant improvement, ranging anywhere from almost around 11 jumps to over 50 average jumps per session during the token economy session. And now this study supports the use of token economies to increase exercise performance and exercise time in individuals of different skill levels, as well as the use of token economies in physical education classes. However, the author points out that reinforcement is individualistic, and for this reason, it's important to consider consider this when selecting backup reinforcers. And that's one of the reasons that we mentioned that maybe conducting a preference assessment is important. So now Heather is going to talk about the study that we replicated.
So we replicated this study by Krentz, Miltenberger, and Valbuena, titled Walking for Adults with Intellectual Disabilities. Here there were 5 men as participants, ages 34 to 67 with mild to moderate intellectual disability, and they were all overweight or obese. So getting them to walk was important for their health. The setting was an adult day center in Florida, and it was from 8:30 to 2:30 that it was open, that they were there. There was a preference assessment given, and they could exchange it for tokens after, and a token was earned for every 50 meters walked, and that was a lap. And then go ahead with the next slide. All right, and so they were able to walking sessions, were every morning from 9 to 10, and before taking the participants out to walk, they were asked, who wants to walk today? And those that were wanted to walk were taken out. They weren't made to walk. It was on their own volition. During baseline, there was no praise provided. So do you want to walk today? And then they'd go and they'd walk. But during intervention phase, participants were given praise. And they were also reminded, hey, great job. You're walking for cupcakes or whatever it was that they were walking for. So they were even in their praise reminded of what they were working for. And then, as said, they'd get a token for every 50 meters for every lap. The first intervention phase resulted in a noticeable increase in laps for 4 of the 5 participants. The 5th participant was Elton, and he just got out there from baseline and walked really hard to the beginning. And so when it went to intervention, there wasn't much of a difference because he's just a hard walker. Secondary baseline, though, everybody dropped, even Elton. And then on the second intervention phase, everybody went back up. And again, the laps increased substantially for all 5 participants. So this was a successful say to support token economy.
The purpose of the study is to replicate the Miltenberger, and Valbuena study using token reinforcement to increase walking for adults with intellectual disabilities. The study that Heather just talked about. The purpose is to measure the effectiveness of a token reinforcement system in increasing walking among 4 female active graduate students, us, while utilizing an AB-AB reversal design. The participants were 4 female college students who were enrolled in graduate classes at Ball State University, ranging from ages 27 to 35. 3 participants live in California, which is me, Danielle, and Claudia, and Heather lives in Utah. All participants were healthy individuals actively involved in regular exercise. Claudia is a powerlifter. Me and Danielle do CrossFit, and Heather practices Krav Maga martial arts. The setting, each walking session was conducted in the place of participants' choosing in the city where the participants resided, and all the setting or the walking places varied from the beach, the mall. I think one day one of us was walking in circles in our backyard, whatever worked. Materials, smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, Map My Walk app and the Token Store app, this for that. Reinforcers that we all chose via the preference assessment and a social validity questionnaire. The operational definition of the dependent variable, the target behavior was walking laps. Walking is defined as moving forward with one foot in front of the other in a typical way, with the individual showing no signs of physical distress, to include redness of the face, sweating, or labored breathing, and can maintain a conversation throughout the walk. A lap is defined as walking 50 meters.
Okay, so for our data collection, it was collected via the Map My Walk app that each participant used on their personal cell phones, whether it was an Android or an iPhone. And each session was mapped and recorded in kilometers through the app, and then we would manually convert them into meters. And the way we did this was the number of kilometers walked by 1,000, or we multiply it by 1,000. So an example would be if I walked 137 kilometers, I would multiply it by 1,000, and I would walk 1,370 meters. And then we would convert this into laps by dividing it by 50, because the participants in the original study walked a 50-meter lap, and that's what we are defining as a lap, is 50 meters. So for baseline, participants walked for 1 hour or until we voluntarily stopped walking. There was no reinforcement given during baseline, but we did ask the question, are you going to walk today, via text message to each of our participants. A multiple stimulus without replacement preference assessment was completed via phone call or video chat. Christina and Claudia conducted theirs, as Heather and I conducted our separate preference assessments to find out what our reinforcers were. Established hierarchy of preferred items and activities that will be used as reinforcement, and we'll talk about what we actually ranked as our reinforcers in a little bit. And the preference assessment was conducted 3 times with 5 minutes in between assessments. So here's our preference assessment results, 1 being the highest and 5 being the lowest on what we could earn through the token store app. This for that. So for Claudia, her highest reinforcer was a pastry. For myself, it was going to Starbucks, which I love. Heather works for cupcakes, and Christina worked for chocolate almond milk. And it will be noted that Christina's preference assessment changed daily because she is pregnant. So she.
I know I like chocolate almond milk.
Yeah. So during intervention, each participant selected a 1-hour period during the day on weekdays to choose when they would walk or not to walk. And they were free to choose what time they wanted to walk and the setting. So like Christina mentioned, it could be the beach, the mall. I did walk circles in my backyard one day because I had a really busy day at work and it was raining. So I ended up walking back and forth, and my dog probably thought I was crazy, but I did do the walking. So 50-meter laps were conducted and measured as kilometers on the Map My Walk app, and then we did convert them manually into meters. Tokens were earned for each lap walk. 25 tokens was the top reinforcer, 20 tokens were the second reinforcer, 15 tokens for the third, 10 tokens for the fourth, and 5 for the last reinforcer. Tokens were awarded after the walking session concluded through the token store app. And it will be noted that during this time, reinforcers were unavailable for a 6-hour period, including 1 hour before the walk and 1 hour after. And we did use the honor system to relay whether or not we actually had access to our reinforcers. As in the original study, they did not have access to their reinforcers during that time that they were at the school. The second phase, the reinforcer prices increased by 5 tokens for some participants. And then we're going to talk about the results section.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about our results. During baseline 1, actually, all of our participants walked 0 laps. We actually didn't walk at all. This was during the entire phase. Now, during the first token reinforcement phase, all participants increased the number of laps walked. All participants walked. Some individuals walked more than others, and some individuals walked more days than others. So, for example, during this first treatment phase, Claudia walked 3 out of 5 days and increased her average number of laps walked to 8.4 laps per session. It averaged out to 8.4 because there were some 0 days in there. Due to illness, this participant was unable to walk more during this initial token phase. Now, Danielle walked 3 out of 5 days and increased her average number of laps walked to 24.13 laps per session. Again, there were some 0 days in there, so it averaged out to this number. Heather walked 5 out of 7 days and increased her average to 35 per session. There were also a couple of 0 days in there. And then finally, Christina walked 2 out of 5 days during this phase, and she increased her average number of laps walked to 15.32 per session. And during the second baseline phase, 3 out of 4 participants again walked 0 laps during this entire phase. Danielle's average actually remained fairly high. It stayed at 20.44 average. This was slightly lower than the token intervention phase. I think it was about like 15% lower. So it still went down a little bit. And then during the second or the reintroduction of the token economy phase, all of the participants showed an increase in the average number of laps walked. And for this phase, Claudia's average number of laps increased to 26. Danielle's average increased to 31.26. Heather's average increased to 17.9. And lastly, Christina's average increased to 56.56. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit more about the results. We're going to go on to the the next slide here. So in summary, all the participants showed a significant improvement in the number of laps walked during the token phases. They also walked more days. As we said, we walked 0 days, 0 laps during the first baseline, and then 3 participants did this again during the second baseline phase. So now 3 participants actually increased their average number of laps walked during the second intervention phase relative to the first intervention phase. And for 2 participants, for Claudia and Christina, this increase was around 70%. And during this phase, there was also a decrease in number of laps walked by almost 50% for 1 participant relative to the first token phase. Okay, now we're going to go on to a comparison of the results, and Heather's going to talk about how our results compared to the original study.
So comparatively, we both groups responded for token in the token reinforcement phase compared to baseline. However, our data points do look different. The baseline for the original study, as you can see, most of them were able to get out and walk. Elton doing 60 to 70 laps. Most everybody got above 30 laps once during baseline, all but 1. In our baseline phase, as you can see, we just didn't walk. In our first phase, our laps did increase dramatically from baseline. Claudia had a increasing trend, whereas the rest of us had some variability, dropping to 0 or having higher days and then lower days. Whereas the original study, they were mainly steady with a little bit of variability. As you could see, there were some dropping. They did pretty steady, and then they drop down and then go back up or whatever. But both groups did respond to the intervention. Baseline again for us was pretty steady, or we went to 0 again, except for Danielle. Whereas in baseline for them, they all did drop a bit, but they still were walking. They were still making some laps, as you could see. And even Elton dropped a little bit. And then token reinforcement, second phase. Again, we had 0 days and variability compared to the other group, but and the group was a little more variable this time around. However, again, both of our groups responded compared to baseline and intervention, and compared to the baseline phases.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the social validity or walking program questionnaire. So a questionnaire was given to all the participants to evaluate their opinion of the walking program as a whole. So our survey results revealed that our group was only somewhat satisfied or neutral in our satisfaction with participation in the program. We didn't feel that the token economy impacted the distance we walked, nor our satisfaction with the walking program. Results were really neutral at best. Additionally, although a couple of group members said that they weren't sure, nobody said that they intended to continue walking after the program ended. And just an update, none of us have walked since we've ended this this replication study. Sure, we walk in our everyday lives, we walk our dogs, and we still participate in the exercise programs that we mentioned that we're all active in, but we haven't continued walking. So finally, one of the participants said that she intended to use the token economy in the future to assist with her exercise goals, but that was the only individual. Surprisingly, we revealed that the reasons for our increase in laps walked during the token economy phase, the reasons were actually completely unrelated to the intervention. They included things such as wanting to beat a previous distance, feeling obligated to walk due to being in the intervention phase, wanting data points for our graph, and then concerns about our grade. Now, Heather is going to talk a little bit about how this differed from the original study.
Yes, so the original So the study had very favorable results on their social validity questions. Their questions were a little different, but they still had that 1 through 5 scale. Most of the questions scored an average of 4.6 or above. The mean scores were 4.8 for walking more than before. So most of them felt, yeah, I'm walking more than before. 4.6 for feeling the walking program was enjoyable. 4.8 for feeling physically more active. And 4.6 for will continue to walk in the future. So as you can see, compared to our results, they were much more favorable.
Okay, so for our IOA and treatment fidelity, participants tracked the number of laps and distance walked via the Map My Walk app. All participants linked their phones through the multiple apps, so we befriended each other on the app so we could track each other's progress and provide praise this way and through text message. IOA was calculated at 100%. Treatment fidelity was tracked by a weekly log that each participant completed, and it included the distance that they walked and whether or not their reinforcement or reinforcer was achieved. And then our fidelity was monitored by the assigned app, so we would be able to tell how many tokens someone earned or how many laps they walked by sending the picture through the apps, and then we could track it that way. Tokens were awarded by our assigned partners after the distance was confirmed, and monitoring outside use of reinforcers was based on the honor system. So like I said before, we use honor system to stay away from our reinforcers for a time frame of 6 hours, 1 hour before and 1 hour after walking. And we will let our partners know whether or not we engaged in the reinforcer. In the original study, they did not have access at all to the original reinforcers that they decided through their preference assessments. Now, Christina is going to talk about the limitations.
Some of the limitations were that no one was present in person to monitor the intervention. Finding a balance in work, education, and family life made it difficult for participants to find the time in their day to walk. Bad weather, including rain and snow, had to find a place inside to walk. Like Danielle mentioned, that she had to walk inside because it was raining. And then travel and vacation during study, possible reduced motivation and walking opportunities. Illness, at some point we all got sick and did not walk or felt like walking. Changes in preferences due to diet restrictions or pregnancy, which would be me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, I think.
Okay, conclusion and final thoughts. The results of this program indicated a positive correlation between an increase in number of laps walked per participant and the token reinforcement program that we used. Although other studies using token economies have been proven to have a positive effect on target behaviors, our social validity questionnaire results indicated that the use of a token economy system did not contribute to our participants' results, and thus far, none of us have walked since. And that's our conclusion of our presentation.